Remember when you're going through a sales quote with somebody that this isn't the end. It's not just an 8-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute transaction. Like, we're starting a relationship. You're going to make a decision today that you're going to be with me for the next 10 years. I hope you're with my company for 20 years from now. So get them to focus on the big picture and all of that really is involved with your company, not just this is a 10-minute phone call. You want people envisioning themselves with your company, being happy, let them know how you take care of people over time, you're their agent, all that stuff. But get them to focus on the big picture, not that just as, I'm just going to try and slam you into a sale right now. So another technique in sales is called planting the seed. And what that means is you're going to say little things throughout the call to get this person already in an agreeable mood. So for example, you get their email address early on. You're okay, great. This is where I'm going to send your proof of insurance. You find out that they're married. You go, okay, great. Your wife's going to be happy that you chose to go with us. You find out what vehicles they're using. Okay, cool. These are the insurance. I'm going to get you ID cards for these cars. We'll have those in just a few minutes. So let them know that this is going to result in a sale, and you're kind of just giving little comments throughout the call, and it's almost subliminal that they're, okay, they're setting this up, and by the end of the call, it's going to turn into a sale. Anytime you're going to deliver a price, you want to make it as super clean and easy to understand as possible. So if you're looking at a rate of $335.35, just call it $335. The customer doesn't need to hear the change, and you certainly don't want them taking the time to write all that down. Nobody's going to buy or not buy from you over a 35-cent price difference. So now, trust me, once you sell it, you're going to get more into the details, but for quoting purposes, just give them the round numbers. You might even round up. If it's $389.52, then just call it $390. Make it super easy for them to understand and be confident about the way you present them. If you're selling with a major carrier these days, chances are the customer you're talking to might have been with you before. Maybe not with your agency, but maybe they've been with that company, and they'll tell you. So when they have been with your company, you want to ask them, how was your experience? Now, if it was a good experience, you want to obviously lean into that and say, yeah, we're a really good company. Now, if they had a bad experience, then you're definitely going to want to distance yourself and act like, or at least let them know, that wasn't me, I wasn't here then, things are a lot different now, we're a much better agency now, things are so much better. So focus on the positives if they liked it, and totally dismiss the negatives if they didn't. So when you get the customer that you can't quite tell is listening, maybe they sound like they're distracted or they're watching TV or they're slow to answer, the easiest way around that is just to get them back on track by asking really simple questions that they know the answer to, and what I call rapid fire. So for example, you're going to say, so was that street, place, avenue, what was your street? Okay, and then the last four of your number, 5902, okay, or how do you spell your name again? Brown, even if it's a simple question, the idea is you're going to get them to have to be alert and listen to what you're saying, because ultimately you need your customer listening to you if you actually want to sell a policy. You can't have them being distracted and not focusing on what you're saying. So ask the rapid fire questions and you're going to get them right back on board. One of the harder things to do on a sales call is make it sound more like a conversation rather than an application. So rather than asking somebody, address, phone number, email, you can say things like, so where do you live now? And kind of indicate, hopefully your customer's on board and they're going to give you their address. Or how do you want me to reach you? What's the best number? That sounds different than what's your phone number. Or hey, are you going to want me to be able to email you this? And so they're going to probably start giving you their email address at that point. So it takes a little bit of skill and takes a little bit of practice, but if you do it and you're working on it, you'll figure out a way to make it sound like you're just having a conversation with this person rather than you're asking them application questions. All right, a really fun sales tactic I have is when I ask somebody who their company is, and then I say a piece of value that my company has, and basically by putting those right next to each other, it makes it sound like their company doesn't necessarily do that. So for example, if I say, what company are you with? And they say, I'm with XYZ. Oh, wow. Because you're with XYZ, sir, you're going to want to know that we offer this, this, and that. Now, doing that, like I said, positioning that quickly, it's basically implying that their company doesn't offer those benefits. And you may not know. Maybe they do or don't. But by you saying, hey, we do this, as soon as you find out who a company they're with, it's going to cast a little doubt on their current policy, their current company. And most likely, they don't even know what their current company does anyways. All right, something really annoying that some customers do is when you ask them if they want to pay in full or how they want to pay, they tell you it depends on the price. So this isn't true. There's no way that they're going to decide based on your price whether or not they want to pay 6 months at a time or 1 month at a time. So simply ask them, how do you currently pay? So if you find yourself in that situation, like, sir, do you want to pay monthly or 6 months at a time? And they say, well, it depends on the price. Just ask them, how do you currently pay? Because ultimately, you're going to want to present the price in a way that they can interpret that. If they're currently paying monthly, you don't want to tell them a 6-month price because then they're going to have to do math in their head and this is going to delay your close. So always ask them if they don't answer the right way, which is monthly or paid in full, then just ask them how they currently do it and present it that way. Depending on the company you work for, you might, or even the risk that you're dealing with, you might have different prices for the down payment and the monthly payments. So for example, maybe it's $1,000 down and $250 a month. When you're presenting a price, you would always want to lead with the monthly price than the lower number. So for example, I would close them and say it's $250 a month because I want the person leaning into that going, okay, that sounds good, and then tell them the bad news about the $1,000 down. But the opposite of that would be you tell them it's $1,000 down and the customer's already shutting you down. It has no, they don't even want to hear the rest of what you're saying. So in order to keep them interested and get them agreeable, leaning in, make sure you're telling them the monthly price or the lower price first, and then telling them how much the down payment's going to be right after that. Understand that customers may not tell you the truth about things such as how much they pay. So for example, if a customer tells you they pay $180, you get to the end, you tell them you're paying you're going to charge $250, you're $70 more. If they're still talking to you after all that happens, it's likely that maybe that's not entirely the full picture. Maybe their renewal is more $280 or something like that, whereas it's not just a matter of beating that price. So usually, and you already should know this, if you're way out of the ballpark, you're $70 more a month, the customer is usually going to end the call pretty quickly. Now, if they're still engaging with you, they're asking you questions, would you guys take credit cards, or can we split this up over monthly or whatever? If they're still talking to you, it's very likely that you are in the ballpark, even though they didn't tell you they were. You got to remember what you're doing here. The only reason you're at work today is to sell things. Nobody needs you to quote. Okay, if quoting sold policies, they could do that with a computer, and literally there's computer programs out there that can quote policies. The reason you have a job, the reason you're here, is because you're going to do everything you can to figure out how you sell this specific person. The way you do this is by getting to know them and figuring out what value they're interested in and positioning it in a way that they like. So understand, you are a sales professional. Your job is to sell things. You are not the quote department. You're not here just to give prices all day. Every single time you take a call, you should be going in with the attitude that I'm here to sell, and I'm going to find how am I going to sell this guy. I'm looking for those opportunities. And obviously watch the sales training. You're going to learn how to do all that. But you are not the quote department. You are here to sell things, and that's it. All right, so if you know me already, you know that I don't like calling people back. I have no faith that they're actually going to answer. So if you're ever in a situation where you're supposed to be calling somebody Thursday at 3 o'clock, you should always call them a little bit early, like Thursday at 2:50, something like that. And the reason is because they may not want to talk to you. So if you call them at 3 o'clock, then their phone rings and they go, yeah, it's Thursday at 3. I know who this is. I don't want to talk to them. Where if you call them a little bit early, it makes it sound like you're eager to talk to them. Maybe you're excited to talk to them, and maybe you catch them off guard if they were trying to avoid your call in the first place. So whenever they tell you to call, I would always call a little bit earlier than that, unless like they say, I don't get off work until 5 o'clock. Calling somebody at 4:59 in that situation is not going to work out. But if they just pick a number out of the sky, yeah, call me Thursday at 3, then I would absolutely make sure I call them a little bit early. A lot of people that are in a sales position actually came from somewhere else in the insurance industry. For example, they might have been a claims adjuster or a claims estimator, or they worked in underwriting or something like that. So even if you have a ton of information and knowledge about insurance, that doesn't mean necessarily that your customer cares about it. I don't mean to be rude about it, but I've seen it a lot of times where someone has 15 years of claims experience and they insist on telling every single customer about how all these claims are going to be handled. So your customer may not care about that. So it's very difficult, and that takes time to develop that skill. But don't force knowledge on customers if they're not willing to listen. And if you can't tell, if you don't have any sort of rapport with this person, then definitely don't launch into a 2-minute conversation about how the claims are handled if you can't tell if your customer's actually paying attention and actually caring about what you're talking about. A lot of people that are in a sales position actually came from somewhere else in the insurance industry. For example, they might have been a claims adjuster or a claims estimator, or they worked in underwriting or something like that. So even if you have a ton of information and knowledge about insurance, that doesn't mean necessarily that your customer cares about it. I don't mean to be rude about it, but I've seen it a lot of times where someone has 15 years of claims experience and they insist on telling every single customer about how all these claims are going to be handled. So your customer may not care about that. So it's very difficult, and that takes time to develop that skill. But don't force knowledge on customers if they're not willing to listen. And if you can't tell, if you don't have any sort of rapport with this person, then definitely don't launch into a 2-minute conversation about how the claims are handled if you can't tell if your customer's actually paying attention and actually caring about what you're talking about. It's important that you always let your customer know that you're moving towards the goal of finishing it and giving them a price, because your customers are going to get antsy. They're going to want to hurry up and give me the price, or just give me the quote, or something like that. So it's important that you always tell the customer how close you are, and you're always one step away. So for example, okay, and lastly, sir, I'm just going to ask you this. Okay, and one more thing, I got this, and then finally I got this, and then we're almost there, I just need this. And you're always going to make it sound like you're one step away, with customers willing to stay on the phone and keep hearing you talk. Because ultimately they want the quote. They wanted the quote before they even called you, right? So now you're trying to keep them on the phone and have a sales conversation with them. Let them know that it's coming. We're almost there, sir. You're going to love this. We're getting close. It's just about done, almost finished, and basically lead them to believe that we're just about there, and hopefully you are at this point. Sometimes your customer is going to want to talk, and they're just going to talk, and tell you all kinds of things. So I know that there's a tendency to want to get back to the quote and focus on the application and get the, complete the task at hand. But I want you to understand, if your call is going to last 10 minutes versus your call lasting 11 or 12 minutes, that extra 1 or 2 minutes isn't going to make a big deal on the grand scheme of things. However, you're going to learn a lot from your customer by allowing them to talk. So if your customer is in the talkative mood and they want to start telling you about, their experiences with insurance companies or why they bought their car, give them a few minutes. Let them do that. You don't have to cut them off and get back on track, because ultimately, when you look at the sales training that we do, ultimately you want them to like you, and you want them to open up and talk to you and feel like you're someone worthy of listening. So definitely allow them to continue their talk. You're only going to gather intel that's just going to help you sell policies. Another tough client to consider is the one that says they've been with their company for 45 years and they love them, and they're not going to switch no matter what. What are you supposed to do? You got them on the phone, they went online, they filled this stuff out. So understand, it's very unlikely you're going to sell this person. In fact, I don't think I've ever sold anybody that starts a call off. I've been with my company for 45 years, and I'm not going to switch. So if they're not going to switch, then what's the point of even talking to them? The only reason you're here is to sell policies. So if you have a customer that's starting off the call like, I pay $89. I've been with my company for 49 years, and if you can't beat that, I'm not going to switch. Ask them. So if I came in at $75, would you do it? What if I could prove I was a better company? Would you do it? And if they say no, 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 then there's really no point in even quoting this person. They're just not going to switch no matter what. So you might as well save your time and do something. Work on somebody that's more likely to switch. Most of the customer you talk to, they're not going to want to hear a sales pitch, right? And they'll tell you that. I don't want to hear your pitch. Just give me the price. So, however, I already know that these people need to know it. What we offer at our company is amazing value. And I know that you're not going to buy my policy unless you understand that we're worth it. So you have to tell these people, even when they don't want to hear it, you have to give them all the reasons we're amazing. And I'm sure you've noticed this before as you go through calls. But ultimately, if you tell the person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of value, one of those is going to stick. And had you only done the one and the person says, don't tell me anymore, had you just stopped there, you never would have figured out that the 4th piece of value is what they actually care about and what they want to, and they're worth paying more for that. So make sure, even if they're not willing to listen right away, make sure you continue to do that throughout the call, because ultimately that's what they need to buy your policy, because most likely your price isn't going to come through for you. Habit that I have a lot of people ask, or I hear a lot of people asking, is how is your current company treating you? I know this makes sense because you're hoping that they say they're not as good as they should be, but it's unlikely. Most people, believe it or not, they're going to want to defend the decision that they made before. So if I've been with my company for 14 years and you're calling me out of the blue asking me how I like my company, I'm probably going to tell you that I like them. They're fine. Even if I don't want to admit to you that I've been making the bad decision for the last 14 years, or I've been with this company that I don't like. I don't want to tell you that, because I'm definitely more loyal to that company than I am to you. So don't put your customers in a situation where they have to defend their company. So don't ask them, how do you like your company now? How are they treating you? And don't ask them things like, hey, does your company offer this benefit, that benefit, and that benefit? Because they're going to say, yeah, my company offers all that, even if they have no idea. People are going to want to defend the company they're with. So don't even ask the question and don't put them in that position. All right, you want to make sure that you avoid the temptation to hurry up and rush when a customer is trying to force you to. So if you're 7-8 minutes into a conversation with somebody and the guy's like, hurry up, just understand there's no way they're going to have time to give you their driver's license numbers and VIN numbers and credit card numbers and account numbers and all that stuff to actually start the policy. So understand by hurrying, you're not going to really do anything to help you get closer to a policy, to a sale. So you can say things like, absolutely, I'm going as fast as I can, we're almost there, we're just about done, one more thing, two more things, something like that. But understand there's no reason for you to hurry and speed through an application because you're not going to sell it if you do that. Because ultimately you're just going to hurry up and give them a price, and then it's price versus price, and you're probably going to lose. So the only way you're actually going to sell policies is if you connect, if you have the value, and if you close them. So understand, just because they're in a hurry doesn't mean that you have to be. However, you do need to tell them that you're going to be moving faster so that they believe that you're on the same page as them. All right, so you know that you're only going to have about 8 to 10 minutes to talk to these people in most situations with like an auto insurance quote. You want to start selling immediately. You don't want to wait until you're halfway through a call. I know that a lot of people out there, they're taskmasters. They must complete boxes and check this stuff off. You got to recognize that about yourself and realize the only way you're going to sell this policy is by having a conversation and telling them the value and all that. You can't wait till you're 6, 7, 8 minutes into a call and then start selling. So I know a lot of people I work with, they want to complete the first page of the application before they break off into a tangent. That's just not going to work. If you want to sell policies, you got to realize the application comes secondary. What you need to do is the connecting and the value. You need to be doing all that stuff immediately. That's way more important than asking somebody what their address is or their phone number, email address. Having a rapport with somebody, that's what sells policies. You have to do that immediately in the call. So don't put yourself in a habit where you don't start selling anything until after the vehicle page or something like that. All right, it drives me nuts when one of my employees comes up to me and tells me how they just saved somebody like $100 a month. It doesn't happen often, I'm not saying that. But my point is like, oh my God, you saved this person way too much money. You should not have done that. So rather than saving people that kind of money, you should be giving them much better coverage. You should be giving them lower deductibles. You should be giving them another line of insurance like a renter's policy or homeowner's policy, making sure that you give them life insurance, boat insurance, something like that. Because you don't need to save somebody $100 a month. You could save somebody $70 a month and give them life insurance. Or you could save them $50 a month, you give them life insurance and twice as good a coverages. Because it's not just a matter about you wanting to save them money right now. At some point, we want them to have a lot of coverages, so if they ever shop around, they're going to find out that they can't get that amount of coverages for this price. So don't worry about saving people that much money. Nobody should be switching you because of saving money anyways. This should be all the value that you're presenting. But don't save them that much. Build that quote back up and try to get the premium higher. All right, it drives me nuts when one of my employees comes up to me and tells me how they just saved somebody like $100 a month. It doesn't happen often, I'm not saying that. But my point is like, oh my God, you saved this person way too much money. You should not have done that. So rather than saving people that kind of money, you should be giving them much better coverage. You should be giving them lower deductibles. You should be giving them another line of insurance like a renter's policy or homeowner's policy, making sure that you give them life insurance, boat insurance, something like that. Because you don't need to save somebody $100 a month. You could save somebody $70 a month and give them life insurance. Or you could save them $50 a month, you give them life insurance and twice as good a coverages. Because it's not just a matter about you wanting to save them money right now. At some point, we want them to have a lot of coverages, so if they ever shop around, they're going to find out that they can't get that amount of coverages for this price. So don't worry about saving people that much money. Nobody should be switching you because of saving money anyways. This should be all the value that you're presenting. But don't save them that much. Build that quote back up and try to get the premium higher. All right, most of the people you're going to be quoting, they have coverages right now, and they probably have no idea why they have certain coverages. Or they think they're high and they're really not, or whatever it is. So be careful not to fall in love with the coverages that your customer already has. It's very unlikely that your customer went to their agent's office, sat down, they went over all their assets and liabilities and figured out their net worth and all that, and then specifically came up with these coverages for a specific purpose. That's very unlikely. So when your customer is saying, give me me a quote on what I have now. Don't just fall for that and say, well, this guy wanted a quote on 5100, so that's why I gave him a quote. You should have a conversation with them about it if they're that insistent about their coverages and they want to talk about it. Well, how'd you come up with these coverages? Who chose those for you? Why do you have these limits? When's the last time you reviewed your policy with your agent? You can ask all those questions, but don't just assume because they have this coverage that you should automatically give them that coverage. All right, so when you're going through your sales call, sales conversation, I want to make sure that you constantly remind the customer who you're talking to. You need to make yourself of value. You're the reason they should be switching to this company is because you're amazing. So as you're going through a call, remind, hey, by the way, sir, just my name is Ryan. Once again, I just want you to make sure you know who I am because I'm the one who's going to be taking care of you in the future. And later on, maybe you're going over their vehicle information. Hey, one more time, sir, I just want to make sure you have my name written down there. My name is Ryan. I'm the agent that you're going to be dealing with, and I'm so happy to be in that position to help you out. Also, you can do things like texting them your information. Hopefully you got a cool phone system and you can do that right from there, however your company does it, where you're following the rules and all that. But you can also send them a text. Hey man, I'm going to text you right now so you have my information. Once again, my name is Ryan. I want you to know that because I'm looking forward to being your agent. This is going to be great. So remind them throughout the call who you are and tell them that it's important and that's one of the reasons they should be switching to your company. A lot of people that are working for insurance agencies, they're young. They're like 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they don't have the life experience. And a lot of these younger people, they struggle with the fact that they're quoting people who are 40, 50, 60 years old. Remember, if you're a licensed insurance agent, you know way more than everybody you're talking to. Even if the customer sounds like they're confident and they know things, you went to school for this, you studied all that licensing course, you know a lot. So, and you definitely know more than they do if things came down to it. So don't get discouraged. I know it's easy to say, and I was there once when I was 20 years old selling insurance. I had to struggle with that. But just understand that you are an expert in your field. Like you know more than these people. If you were to go to a tire shop, even if you know about tires, the tire guy working at the tire shop probably knows a lot more about tires than you, especially if there's a training program or something. So understand the simple fact that you're you're licensed insurance agent means you know more than probably 98% of the people you're talking to, and you should go into your calls with that confidence. Shelving is a sales tactic. And what shelving does, it allows you to tell the customer something but not get into a fight with them right then and there about it. So for example, when you're buying internet leads or when I'm buying internet leads, usually these people only want auto insurance. So if I try to say, hey, can I give you a homeowner's quote also, they're usually going to say no. So what I do is I tell them, okay, great, you're a homeowner, we're going to give you a quote on the homeowner. Also, I'm going to tell you more about that later. And that's the shelving part. You're telling the customer, I recognize that you're a homeowner, I'm going to give you a discount, we're just not going to talk about it right now, and I'm not going to ask you if this is something that you want to do. I'm going to put it up on the shelf, and then later on in the call, after we got a few minutes, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes into this call, then they're going to be more receptive. But if I ask somebody, 12 seconds in the phone call, oh good, you're a homeowner, is it okay if I give you a homeowner's quote? They're going to say no. So I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to have the customer say no. I'm going to tell them, oh great, you're a homeowner, I'm absolutely going to give you a homeowner's quote also, and we'll talk more about that later. And that's the shelving technique. Sometimes your company is going to put you in a competitive advantage just simply by the way they price a certain coverage. So MedPay, for example, or personal injury protection. Maybe at your company it's very cheap to maintain that coverage. So I know one company in specific, their property damage is super cheap. So whereas one company might give them $20,000 in coverage, you can give them $100,000 in coverage and it costs like $1 every 6 months, something like that. So if you're ever in a situation where your company has a competitive advantage, make sure that you're focusing or you're telling your customer to focus on the fact that you're giving them 5 times the amount of coverage or you're giving them twice as much coverage. Don't focus or get your customer to focus on the fact that it's only 38 cents. If you tell someone it's 38 cents, they're going to think it's only worth 38 cents. Whereas if you don't tell them and you end up giving them twice as much coverage, even if you get to the end and you're looking at a rate of $40 more a month, you tell the person, yeah, I'm $40 more a month, but I'm giving you twice the coverage on property damage or MedPay or uninsured motorist or whatever you're looking at. You got to understand, in an 8 to 10 minute phone call, there's no way I can teach somebody 20 years plus of insurance experience and knowledge. So I have to pick and choose, and so do you. So you can't get into everything. So avoid the fine print when you're going through a call. You only have a limited amount of time to talk to these people. You have to make sure that you're hitting the high points, the very most important things that are going to help that person make the decision to choose your company. So don't get it all into the, like if you offer accident forgiveness, that you only forgive the first accident. You don't need to go over all that when you're quoting somebody. Now listen, when you do sell it, there is a calling checklist. You're going to want to go more into detail about that stuff. But think about it. In 8 to 10 minutes, you don't have time to go over every single little detail. Don't tell people the bad things. Only tell people the good things. Once they're interested and they want to move forward, then you have to make sure that you are telling them the relevant information that makes you a decent human being, and you're not like forgetting to tell them something that is very relevant and material to their particular situation. You want to make sure as you're going through a call that you don't put yourself in a position where the customer can get out of buying from you. And what I mean by that is asking somebody like, do you have your deck page with you? Or do you know what you carry for uninsured motorist coverage? Or do you have your VIN number, your driver's license? If you ask any of these questions, it's possible, maybe even likely, that the customer is going to say no. So if you're early on in the call and you're asking, read me your VIN number, if the customer says no, then you're already kind of creating doubt in that situation. And the customer is going to be like, well, I guess this isn't an accurate quote, but this is just a ballpark, and they're going to know that this isn't very serious. You want to sell these people on this phone call, which means you're going to not ask them questions, or if you accidentally do ask a question like that, you're going to try and get out of it. So don't ask people for things that they may or may not have, especially if you're calling them. If you're an inbound call center, it's likely that they are prepared to talk to you, and they might have this information. However, if you're outbound calling, the chances of somebody having their VIN number is really low unless they're driving. It's right there in their glove box. So when you're quoting somebody, depending on the customer you're talking to, most people I deal with, they don't want to hear coverages line by line on a quote, okay? Definitely if you sell it, you're going to get into that. But to force a customer or a prospect to listen to you going what bodily injury is, property damage, all that stuff, they most likely, they don't care. They don't want to hear it, and you're forcing them to listen to something they don't want, and they're actually going to tune you out. They're going to do, like cover the ears type of a thing like a kid would do. So that's kind of the mindset you should have. So if you ever want to get into coverages, you should be asking the customer, do you want me to go line by your coverages? Simple as that. And they'll tell you. Most people that I experience, they're just going to say no. They don't want to hear that. They just want to know their price. Now, don't get me wrong. Once you sell this policy, you're absolutely going to go line by line. They're going to understand every single coverage that they have, what it does, and all that. But for quoting purposes, you don't need to cover every single little detail of every single coverage. Now, once they're interested in your price, you can absolutely dive into that and figure that out. But you just don't need to force people to listen to coverages that don't want to hear it. So another sales technique is what I call, what was taught to me as the what and the so what technique. And this is really beneficial when you're talking about a piece of value or a coverage or anything like that. So when you say something, I want you to imagine the customer saying, so what? So for example, the what would be roadside service. And then, so I say, hey, Mr. Customer, I offer roadside service. And then I have to imagine the customer saying, well, so what? Well, so what is that the roadside service is going to cover you if your car, you get locked out, you're raining and you need a jump start. If your car won't start, you get a flat tire. I get to tell them all the benefits. So the important thing for you to remember is it's the what and the so what. So anytime you find yourself saying, hey, we have accident forgiveness, or hey, we have deductible rewards, or hey, we have a great app for that. You have to imagine the customer saying, well, so what? And then you get to explain more about it. So the customer doesn't actually say, so what, you're just going to go with it. So, sir, we have roadside service. What that means to you is blah, blah, blah. And you're going to cover all the benefits of that particular benefit. If your company has the ability to give like a really good coverage and for not a lot of money, make sure you don't tell people that they should do this particular move because of the money. And what I mean by that is, let's say your company can give property damage coverage, and it costs 36 cents every 6 months. You would never want to tell your customer, sir, you should get this coverage because it only costs 36 cents. If you do that, the customer is automatically going to think that's all it's worth. So definitely, I would much rather tell somebody, sir, I'm going to give you 5 times the amount of coverage, and that's way more important for what you need and the way you're driving, the state you're in, the city you're in. That's why you need this coverage. I'm going to give you 5 times. I'm not going to say you need this coverage because it only costs 36 cents. So every company, every situation, their state, that whether it's a high risk or low risk, you might have a situation where you can give uninsured motorists for a great price. Once again, just don't tell people they should be doing things because it's a cheap price. Focus on the benefit of what it actually does. It's 5 times the coverage. It's twice as much coverage. It's half the deductible, or whatever you're going to do. All right, so a little trick I like to do is take credit for things that are good and then blame somebody else if they're bad. So what I mean by that, if there's a discount that's going to lower somebody's rate, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to give you this discount, sir. I'm going to make this rate lower for you. If there's the company is taking rates, I'm going to blame it on them. Yeah, they did this, they did that. My claims department denied your claim. I'm the one who gave you a discount. I'm the one who's going to send you your proof of insurance. I'm the one who's going to help you with this situation. If anything bad happens, that's definitely someone else's. I want my customers to think that I'm the end-all. Like, I can handle things. I want them to associate me with good, positive thoughts. So when they're referring people to me or things like that, I want them to know that I'm doing everything I can. Sometimes I can't control what my underwriting department's going to do. They denied your claim, or they denied your application for life insurance, or whatever it was. I tried to fight it. I told this person, and I went up the ladder. I'm always trying to take credit for the good things, and like I said, just put off those other things as someone else. Be careful when you're quoting people not to assume that the coverages they have now are specifically chosen. Most customers never actually had to sit down with their agent. They never went over their assets and liabilities and came with their net worth. They never did anything like that. They got the coverages that whatever that other agent or other company wanted them to have. That's usually what happens. So when you are comparing coverages, or someone wants to tell you, I have 100, 300 now, and they want to go over that, just don't make the assumption that they spent a lot of time coming up with those decisions. I've worked for quite a few companies, and different companies have different rules, different states, if they're high risk or low risk. Sometimes the difference between 5,100 and 100, 300 is like 46 cents. And then if I was the agent there, I would just give them that. Whereas other companies, that can make a gigantic difference. So just because they're carrying one coverage doesn't mean they specifically chose that on purpose. So don't make that assumption. You should ask your customer if they want to go over these coverages and get more into the details that way, rather than just assuming whatever they have now is what they actually need. So when you're done with a call and you don't sell, a lot of times you're going to be tempted to put in the notes there that, we were $8,000 and they're only paying $1,000. And I don't know if it makes you feel better than knowing that we were way out of the park and there's no way you should have sold it or whatever, but don't do it. The next time if you quote somebody right now, you're not going to quote these people again for probably 5+ months from now. So you don't need to know 5 months from now that you were way more expensive 6 months earlier, 5 months earlier. That's not going to help anybody sell. And it's only going to get in your head. Because if I put in, listen, I'm at $300 and the guy's paying $180, 6 months from now I look at that again and I'm going to call this guy to quote him. I don't need to see the $180 right there, because it's going to psychologically get in my head and make me feel like I need to beat $180. Well, $180 is what that guy was, maybe if he was telling the truth, paying 6 months earlier. That doesn't mean that's what he's paying now. So when you're taking notes, don't put negative things in there that are going to affect your ability to sell the guy, or go in with an open mind next time. Don't put in the price. Don't put in how much more expensive you were, or you were double or triple. None of that is necessary. You didn't sell it. It doesn't really matter why you didn't sell it. You're going to try again in 5 months, and you want to do that with an open mind. Sometimes you can learn a lot about your customer simply by the company they chose before they got to you. So for example, if your company, if they're with a company that advertises, we're open 24 hours, call us anytime, and the customer chose to go that route, they may not have the same expectations of having a local agent as maybe some of those companies, that are in your area, and there's actually physical offices and things like that. So, and also there's other companies that are they specialize in high risk, SR22 and DUIs and lots of accidents, bad credit, all that stuff. So if you're talking to a customer and all you know about them is that they came from a company that doesn't care about driving record, you know that they might have a bad driving record simply from that fact. And the opposite is true. If they've been with their company for 20 years or 15 years with the same company, and they're a local agent, that customer is much more likely to care about the fact that they have a local agent and they can go into. So depending on who your customer's with, you can absolutely tailor your conversation to match what probably their expectations are simply by knowing what company they came from. All right, so sometimes your company puts you in a situation where you can see the coverages that they have now, or the customer may want to tell you what they have now. So what I'm going to tell you about that is we don't ever want to quote exactly what they have, apples to apples, or the same coverage. The reason we don't want to quote that is because it's unlikely that the customer is going to realize that the difference is the value. If they're focusing on, I have this coverage now, I want to quote for the exact same thing, then the customer is putting you in a situation where the only difference is price. Now, I don't sell in a position where I rely on price. I try not to as much as we can. So which means I'm not going to quote you apples for apples. If I can make a difference in a change in your coverages, I'm going to do that. I'm going to change your deductibles, your property damage, your bodily injury, roadside with rental car, whatever. I'm going to make some sort of change, even if it's small, just so I can't say that this is the same coverage as you have now. I'm going to give you a custom plan. This is what I would recommend. This is what my company would put you in. Something along those lines. But don't ever use apples to apples. Don't ever quote them the same thing, because your customer will automatically think that the only difference then is price, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're hoping your price comes through. So you want your customer in an agreeable mood, and the way you can do that is by making it sound like every answer they give you to the question is right. So you being an insurance agent, you probably know that married rates are better, homeowners rates are better. If they're in their 30s or 40s, they're going to have a better rate than somebody who's 18 or 80, right? So when someone's answering these questions, they may or may not actually know that also. So you want to be careful in the tone of your voice. So for example, if you ask somebody if they're married and they say, no, I'm single, you don't want to go, oh, okay, and make it sound like it's bad. You want to say, okay, excellent, great. And then what's do you own or rent your home? If they say they rent, you might feel like, oh boy, that's not going to help your rate. I don't want you to sound defeated. So if they say they rent, I don't want you to go, oh, okay. Instead, you should say, oh, wow, okay, excellent, good. Make it seem like every answer is the right one. So what's your marital status? You're single. Okay, good. And do you own or rent your home? You're renting? Okay, great. And then kind of you can hear in my inflection that I'm making it sound like that's exciting, that's a good thing. So make sure you're paying attention to your tone throughout the call, because those little tips add up, and throughout a whole entire sales call, a bunch of those little things all together make a big difference. All right, your goal of the call is to make sure the customer understands that you're a better company than where they're with. Most of the time, people have no idea the benefits and features of their current company, which means that they're looking at price, which makes sense that they would do that. So as you're going through a sales call, your job is to try and pivot your company or position your company so that they know that you're more amazing than what they have. Now, if they get to the end and you cost more, you get to hold your head up high saying, well, yeah, we cost more, we're amazing, and we're worth it. So you should never apologize that your company costs more. You should leave that call having the customer feel like they're a better company, I'm just not willing to pay that. So for example, consider Toyota and Lexus. Lexus doesn't apologize for costing more than a regular Toyota, right? They're gonna cost more because they're worth it. They're never gonna say, oh man, I'm sorry, I can't be cheaper than the Toyota. We're Lexus, we're better. That's why people appreciate that. They like the way the leather is, or the door shuts, or the sounds it makes, or whatever it is. Your job is to tell them that we're a better company, not apologize for more, or feel like a Lexus needs to come in at a cheaper price than a Toyota in order to actually make the sale. When you work in a sales department, you need to understand closing rate. This is the most fundamental part of what you do. How many times do you have to quote somebody in order to get a sale? So if you quote one person, it's very unlikely you're going to sell it, right? That would be, if you quote one for one, that's 100%. So nobody's at 100%. Most companies, they're really, competitive. You're somewhere around 20%. Buying internet leads, it's a low closing rate. It's definitely a numbers game. So you have to understand what your closing rate is. So you should be tracking this. How many people did you quote? How many people did you sell? And then you're going to get an idea. So you have two ways to sell more policies. You could either quote more people. So for example, if you sell 2 out of 10 people and you want 4 sales today, you need to quote 20 people. That's what your closing rate is. The other option is to get better at your job and be a more effective salesperson. Or personally, the way I like to do it is both. I want to do twice as many quotes and increase my effectiveness and I'm going to go from 2 sales to 6 sales. That's the idea. So understand your closing rate, understand there's 2 ways to get better, either improve your effectiveness or improve the quantity. And I try, like I said, I try to do both. So every once in a while you're going to run into a situation where you're going to feel like the person you're selling needs to defend their decision to somebody else. For example, they're married, or they're a young person, or their partner or roommate is going to want to know certain things. So as you're selling this, and you have 8 to 10 minutes really to figure this out, you're going to try and position your call knowing that that's what they're going to do. So imagine you sell a married couple, you sell one of them the policy, and then they go home that night and you go, hey honey, guess what? I switched to XYZ insurance company. And the customer or the wife is then going to, or the spouse is then going to say, why? Why'd you switch? You need to have your customer in a situation where they can defend their situation. So as you're giving them the value, you're going through all these calls, you want to make sure that you're giving them the ammo that they need to defend their policy. So for example, the guy says, well, why'd you switch? Well, I switched because these guys are open 24 hours. I can call them anytime I want. Unlike the last company we had where we tried to get a hold of them when we needed them when we couldn't do that. You want your customer, you have to think about, they're going to go home, they're going to tell their dad that they just switched to a new insurance company. The dad's going to, of course, say, why'd you do that? What decisions did you want this person to be able to defend their decision. Well, I switched with them because it made a lot of sense for this reason and that reason and that reason, right? That's what you're trying to do. Give them the ammo they need to defend their position. I want you to remember that it's absolutely okay to sell a monoline policy. What I mean by that is sometimes you're going to lead with the auto, and if you're not competitive with auto, it's going to make you want to just give up on everything. However, you should be selling renters policies all day long. So if you're talking to somebody, even if you're not competitive on an auto policy, get them a renter's policy if they don't have one, and if they rent. It's probably only $20 a month or something like that. It's probably a cheap down payment, whatever, but they need to have that coverage. So just because you're not competitive on auto doesn't mean that you can't sell a renter's policy or a homeowner's policy. So the companies out there where people are more likely to be combined. So some companies, if they're from this company, I guarantee they have their auto and home with that company. And other companies, I guarantee that they don't, because that company, that provider doesn't even offer homeowners insurance. So if they're with a company that doesn't even offer homeowners insurance, you have a much better chance of not selling the auto, but only selling the home, and that's totally okay. So do not give up just because you're not competitive on the auto or just competitive on the home. You can absolutely sell the other line, and definitely you should be popping renters policies all the time because they're super cheap and everybody needs it because their house might burn down and they need to know that we're going to give them brand new clothes, brand new furniture, brand new TVs, and all that stuff. The people you're talking to all day, if you're quoting 15 people a day, you're going to talk to people all over the spectrum, so your calls should sound different. They should incorporate the same elements, but you should probably tailor things just a little bit to who you're talking to. So for example, somebody who's driving a Prius is an entirely different person than somebody who's driving an F-350, like a big truck or a dually or something like that. Someone who has a boat is an entirely different person than like a retired person who's 70 and they don't work anymore and they haven't worked for a long time. Or someone who's 22 and a single with 3 kids. Like the way you go about a call, you should be looking for how do I tailor my call to this particular person. So there's all kinds of things that are going to indicate the type of person they are, whether they rent or they own or they're married or they're single, whether they have kids or don't have kids, if they have new cars or old cars, if they have 5 cars and 1 driver or 2 cars and or 2 drivers and only 1 car. All of those things are clues. And so you're never just going through a call, floating through it, hoping that it turns into a sale. You're trying to gather all of this intel as you're going through it to see how can I tailor this call? What's going to be important to this customer? How do I talk to this person in a way that's going to get them to like me more or get me on their side, where I can maybe resonate with them in some way and hopefully they like me and they want to buy from me. So I live in a big city in Las Vegas, so there's a lot of my brand, my company is everywhere. So sooner or later you're going to talk to your customers and they want to come in to start the policy or they want to come in to do the paperwork. This is a horrible idea. I've been burned so many times by this. This is why I'm making a big point about it. So do not tell your customer, if you're talking to them over the phone, do not have your customers come down to do anything before you get their payment information. So what will happen is, I instruct my staff now, if someone's coming down, make sure you get their credit card number and you have everything you need to bind that policy. If they want to come down and see things or get their printouts, that's fine. But what you don't want to have happen is a customer drives to your office and passes 10 more of your company. because chances are they're going to pull into one and then you're going to call them later like, what happened? And they're like, yeah, I went down the street and I started the policy. And you're like, wow, I didn't get credit for that. And the customer's going to act like they didn't know that, but really they don't care. So if you're ever in a situation where the customer's like, I need to go to your office to start this policy, do whatever you can, instruct your staff to do whatever they can to get all that payment information, everything you need to bind the policy, and then have the customer, and you can come in and sign this stuff in person, sir. However you want to try and phrase that, but make sure you're not in a situation where you're hoping that they drive past 10 other offices to get to yours, because I've seen it so many times where they end up going to a different office and you don't get credit for it. So I know I have really amazing cheat sheets. They go along really well with my videos. It has all of the information I cover. I put it right on there, and then the videos in my live training and all that. I just go over it in great detail, right? But basically, what you have is a summary. And so I give my sheet to everybody I talk to and everybody I train, and I kind of watch what they do with it. Do they tuck it at the side of their desk? Do they put it in a drawer in a file cabinet? Do they stack it in the papers with other papers? So what is it you're going to do with it? The successful people that I deal with, they put this right under their keyboard. In fact, when I give them to people, I actually laminate these because they are important and I want you to treat it as important. This stuff does not change. The information on these cheat sheets that I give you, it's still going to be useful a year from now. It was useful 5 years ago. It's just sales in general. So putting this away, all you're going to do is forget about it. Everyone gets tunnel vision if they're not constantly reminded about all the other things they could do. So do not take these amazing sheets and put them in a drawer or tuck them away somewhere. You need to keep these right in front of you all day long and refer to them all the time. In fact, I'd recommend every morning when you first come in, review all these sheets and kind of skim it. Make sure you're reminding them about what you're trying to do all day. But definitely whenever you have good information, you don't want to tuck it away. You want to keep it front and center, and so it's on your mind at all times. As you're going through your sales call, you want to make sure that you don't ever create doubt when it's not necessary. So for example, if you were to ask somebody if they have their VIN number, if they don't have it, you just create a doubt that they're going to actually be able to complete this purchase today or at this time. You don't ever want to do that. You always want to deal with things as they come up. So if you need the VIN number to quote, that's another thing, but for some companies you can go with make, model, and all that stuff. So if you were to accidentally ask the question of do you have a VIN number, you run the risk of them saying no, and then it's, well, they should end the call, or maybe I should call back later, or we don't want to do that. So if you accidentally ask the question, do you have your VIN number, and they say no, immediately follow up, oh, that's okay, I don't really need that, I can give you a good quote anyways, or something to the effect that this isn't going to be a generic quote, this is still going to be accurate even though they didn't have that piece of information. Same goes for like a driver's license number. If they don't have their driver's license or their wife's driver's license, you don't want to create doubt that this isn't going to happen. You want to do everything you can to let the customer feel the entire time that you're basically walking them right into a sale. You're going to close this policy on this phone call, and if there's some sort of obstacle, such as a VIN number or driver's license number, we're going to deal with that as it comes up as late as we can. We want to inch these people closer to the end of that sale, not early on in the call say, well, if you don't have your VIN number and your driver's license, this is just going to be a kind of an inaccurate quote or a ballpark. Don't use the word ballpark. Don't tell them it's not going to be accurate. Get as close as you can to the sale every single time. All right, so as you're going through and you're connecting with somebody, you got to understand at some point you're maxed out. Think of it like a gas tank. So once your gas tank is full, you can't continue to put gas in there. It's not going to work. So you're only going to talk to these people for 8, 10, 15 minutes on a sales call. It's impossible for you to utilize all the connecting that you could potentially do on a call. You don't need to talk to somebody for 20 minutes about how you used to live in Wyoming also, right? Maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then ultimately get back to it. Because unfortunately, if you could have all the connection in the world, you get to the end and you're 3 times as much, there's basically no way you're going to sell that, right? So you're trying to make it so we quote a lot of people, we have a certain level of connect with these people, and like I said, as, you're kind of full. You're not going to be going out after work hanging out with these people, so you're really just trying to connect in order to pivot into the value, right? So understand at some point it's full, you don't need to continue. I've seen people before where they spend 45 minutes talking to somebody and they knew 25 minutes ago that we were double. And the guy already said no, but they're still talking to them. We don't need to do that. That's not what we're here. We're only here to sell policies. We're not here to be, unfortunately, we're not here to make their day, make them feel better about the company, or make them, teach them insurance. That's not what we're here for. We're here to sell things. That's what we do in a sales job. So we're going to sell it on this call, by the way, but ultimately, that's what you're here to do. All right, so a fun little trick I like to do is when the customer already knows what they're paying and now they know what you're charging and maybe they have another rate. So you can use that to your advantage if you get a customer that says they want to shop around. You can point out the fact like, sir, you already know what you're charging, you already know what I'm charging, and you know maybe what this other one is. Or even if it's just a two, sir, you know what you're charging, you know what I'm charging, and you can make it sound like everybody's basically going to be in the same category there. It's not like you're going to find this for half price or anything like that. So if you get somebody where you're close on their premium and they're just like, I want to keep shopping around. Sir, you can shop around all day long. You're not going to find anybody that's half. Insurance has a certain cost to it. There's no way that you're going to find somebody that's going to do it for $50 less per month. That just wouldn't make sense. These companies would go out of business. They have to charge the right rate for the right risk. So with that being said, I got you at a competitive rate. Let's get this going. What's your driver's license number? Right? That's the way you can kind of overcome that and make sure that you're using the fact that they know their price and yours. So now they have basically two quotes, or maybe even they have a third or a fourth. You can use all those quotes to your advantage to basically get the idea of shopping around out of their head by telling them nothing's going to change. You're not going to go find this for this imaginary price that you think. Maybe don't tell them that exact way, but let them know. Like, sir, you have a real company. I'm a real company. That's basically all you need to know. There's no reason for you to keep calling all these other places that are just going to keep telling you about the same. Of course, everybody you're talking to is wanting to save money. Nobody is shopping around for insurance because they want a better company, or they want more value, or they want to know their agent's more accessible or something like that. And when I say nobody, obviously there's somebody out there, but 99% of the time they want a cheaper price. But understand, nobody makes their decision based on price alone. Think about like the clothes you're wearing, the shoes you have, the phone in your pocket. Was there a cheaper alternative? And I guarantee you there is. You look at every single thing you own and there was probably a cheaper option for you, but you chose that because you associated a certain value with how much you're willing to pay for something. So that's your job as a salesperson, is to get your customers to give the focus on the value of your company, not so much the price. So if you do it right, by the end of your call, your customer is thinking, wow, this sounds like a really amazing company. I sure hope that they're close to my price. That's what you're trying to do. You should never get to the end of it and your company costs more than the other guys and you're apologizing that your rate was more. You should hold your head up high, ending your call knowing that, you know what, I'm a better company. You may not be willing to pay for it, but we're definitely better. So, and that's how your call should end. And call them again in the future when maybe our rates are better or something like that. But definitely, you should be understanding that people will pay for value if they understand the value, and your job is to make them understand it. That's what you do in sales. All right, I'm going to teach you just a couple keyboard shortcuts and little computer tricks that I think you absolutely need in order to be the ultimate efficiency. So the first thing I want to show you is a mouse. This center button on most of your mouses or mice out there, it actually opens the link in a new window. So that's a huge trick. Make sure you practice that and check it out, because you're going to find that you can open up like 10 windows when you're doing that without actually closing things. So it helps you keep you organized. Another thing is the Control S. That's how you save. So we're constantly doing things in like our trackers and things like that, where every time we do a Control S and it's a save. Control C for copy. You may want to write this stuff down if you don't already know it. Some of you probably already know this stuff, but Control C will copy whatever you're doing. Control V, as in Victor, will paste. You can also double click a word and it'll highlight that entire word. If you triple click a word, it'll highlight that entire row. So I know this is a lot and I'm talking fast to go over that right now, but you may want to write all that stuff down and go ahead and practice it. Also, another just amazing trick is Alt-Tab. So you hold down Alt with your left thumb and you hit Tab with your left finger, one of those, and that'll cycle through the most recent windows you're at. So that takes a little bit of skill to get going, but once you do that, you'll be flying all over all kinds of windows and just using all just keyboard shortcuts, and it's just going to make your life a lot easier. So hopefully you love that. It's very unlikely that an email or a text is going to sell a policy. I lead with the philosophy that you need to be talking to someone in order to actually sell it. So there's literally companies out there that can auto email the quote to people. They can automatically put it in the mail. You can even text it automatically. The reason that stuff, and the reason you're not doing that is because it doesn't work. If that worked and we could automatically do this stuff, then that's what they would do. Your company wouldn't need you to sell it. They wouldn't need me to train stuff on it. They wouldn't need agency owners and all that. A company would just email people to the sale. So Don't think that you can email people quotes or text people quotes and actually have sales. When you do that, you're only making it about price, and most companies, you're just not going to win if it's price versus price. Most companies, like, they cost more. It's hard to beat another company's carrier's price. So if you were to say, let me text you a quote, or let me gather all your information and send you this quote via email, you're making the assumption that somehow you're just going to have a cheaper price. You can't. You have to keep these people on the phone. You have to give them all the reasons that you're amazing, and that's what's going to sell policies. Otherwise, you're going to send them $189, and you're just going to hope and pray that you're cheaper than their current policy. Or it's not even a fact of being cheaper. You have to be a lot cheaper for them to want to switch based on price alone. Saving somebody $1 who's been with their company for 25 years isn't going to change anybody's mind about switching to you. So if it's going to be price alone, you got to realize that you're going to have to be a lot cheaper, and most companies just aren't designed to be a lot cheaper than everybody else out there. All right, you can anticipate objections that are going to come. So for example, if you're talking to somebody who's married, it's very likely you're going to get to the end of the call and they're going to want to say, well, let me talk to my spouse. If you're talking to an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, it's very likely they're going to say something like, let me talk to my parents before I go making the decision. So you can do things on these calls if you're thinking about it, you're trying to be a salesperson, you can do things and take steps to try and overcome those objections before they even happen. So for example, on the 19-year-old kid, this guy has never bought insurance before, he has no idea what he's doing. If you represent yourself as you're the perfect agency, you do a lot of 19-year-olds, you're used to people getting their very own insurance policy for the first time, this is what you're comfortable dealing with, this guy, luckily he got you instead of some other company that wouldn't take care of him the same way, you can position those things to make him feel good about it. Tell him things, man, your family's going to be happy that you made a decision to come to my company. In fact, when we get off this call after I sell you something, have your dad give me a call, he's going to want to get the same thing you got, those types of things. That's how you can overcome that stuff before it even happens. Someone that has their wife or their husband that they need to talk to about it, just let them know, wow, that's cool that your husband's letting you do all the shopping, or your wife trusts you to do all this. You want to plant seeds like that. You're going to make a great decision. Your spouse is going to be so proud of you. You could plant seeds like that throughout the call. It may not necessarily work, but that's all you can do is try and put little things in a certain order that are going to help you try to sell that policy. Sometimes you're just going to talk to somebody where it's going nowhere. You're just not going to sell this person. They've been with their company for 40 years and they're super happy and there's no way they're going to switch, but they're just checking the market out there. If you are in a situation where you know this person's not going to switch, you're really wasting your time even talking to them. So your job is to sell policies. The only way you're going to sell policies is by talking to people that are going to be receptive. So if you talk to somebody who's like, no, I don't want to hear your value, just give me the price, just give me the price, just give me the price, you're not going to get anywhere with that person and there's really no point in continuing that call. So obviously you want to check with your manager, your boss, your owner, make sure that they're cool with this. But ultimately, I let my staff, as soon as you know that there's a dead end, there's no way this is going to turn into a sale, get off the phone. Say, let me call you back later, sir. Let me call you back at another time when you have time for this, or something to that effect. But I don't want my staff spending 6, 8, 10 minutes a lot of times on people that they know isn't going to buy. So you also can't immediately decide that. In the first minute of a call, it's very likely the person's going to be resistant. They're going to be, they're not going to want to be friendly with you and things like that. But if you're 6, 7 minutes into this call and they're still like, come on, let's hurry up, there's no way you're going to sell that. If they don't have time to listen to your pitch, there's no way they're going to have time to get their driver's license number, their credit card number, their checkbook, go over the call ending checklist, and actually switch to you. So, and if they're not going to actually switch to you, then what's the point of even talking to them? So sometimes it's important, just cut bait. As soon as you know that this is an unwinnable battle, just get rid of them and move on to the next call that you actually have a chance of selling. All right, so I love using McDonald's as an example for my next little story here. So when you think about McDonald's, it's like a factory, right? It's like a widget factory. You go up to the register and you're like, hey, I want the number 1. The lady's going to look at you and she's going to say, okay, it's $8 or whatever it is. Go ahead and put your card in the machine. Go ahead and hit the green button. It's going to ask you a question. Hit no on that. Go ahead and put your PIN number in. The lady is going to walk you through that whole process because it's a very transactional thing. She's not asking you. She doesn't say, hey, it's $8. Do you want that? She's not asking, it's $8, are you okay with that? She knows it's $8 and you're going to buy it, so the next thing I need you to do is put your credit card number in that machine, and then I need you to hit this button and that button, and she's going to walk you down that road. She's going to make it very easy for you to do it. She's not going to ask you a bunch of questions after that. So I want you to think of that in terms of how you close somebody. When you close somebody, you want to make it sound like you close everybody you talk to. So that's why it's a very assumptive. All right, it's $489. You're going to love that. Go ahead and read me your driver's license number. Let's get this going. And the person is going to hopefully start doing that. But at least you're going to get that person leaning forward, leaning into you, like thinking that this is a natural progression. When I quote people, I sell people. That's basically the whole idea. So I love McDonald's because everybody's been there. You notice when they give you a price, they don't ask you if you're okay with that. They don't ask if that was what you were expecting or anything like that. They tell you, hey, here's the price. Go ahead and do this. I need you to step down there. We're going to call your number in a second. Very transactional, and that's how you want your overall closing process to go. So I think over the years I've been selling insurance and I've been in sales basically my whole life. And one of the things I think that helped me get there to the level I wanted to be and as good as I wanted to get at sales was constantly reflecting. I'm going to use the life insurance example. So I used to literally go to people's houses and I'd get in there and I'd make a presentation and I wouldn't sell it. And I'm very competitive, so that was a big problem for me. So what I would do, I'd get in my car, I'd drive away, I'd park like a block away because I don't want them looking out the window at me. And I'd sit in my car and I'd reflect. What happened in that interaction? Why didn't I sell this policy? And what could I have done? Where did it go wrong? There's better people than me selling. What would they have done in order to land that deal? So just like this, and same thing I did on phone calls. I do a lot of recording, listening to calls and things like that. So when you're in a situation, listen, when you're twice as much, 3 times as much, no one was going to sell it. Don't even think about that call. However, when you were competitive, if you were cheaper, if you were within 10% and you didn't sell that, that is absolutely the kind of case that you need to reflect on. You should listen to that call again, figure out what could you have done to have gotten closer to selling it. I don't believe that there's ever one thing that you could have done to sell something. I believe there's lots of little things that you do throughout a call. So listen to that call. Think about what are all the things you could have done that would have gotten you closer. And if you do enough things that are going to get you closer, eventually those things start landing your way. The ball starts bouncing your way. So always reflect, always try to improve, and think about what could you have done better. And if there is somebody better in this world at selling, what would they have done in order to get that sale? All right, a couple of little tricks I'm going to give you for some computer secrets here or hacks is there's 2 programs probably installed with your Office program. One of them is called Sticky Notes. So you can go to your start menu, you can just start typing sticky and it's going to pop up. So what I typically recommend is once you open that up, go ahead and on your taskbar you're going to see the little yellow sticky note on the bottom. I always tell people immediately right click it and then lock it to the taskbar, I believe is the way it's titled. But that way it's always there. So anytime you need to jot something down real quick, I try to be as paperless as I can in my offices. So ultimately, you can do sticky notes on the computer. It's kind of like a little post-it note. Super cool. Saves the stuff forever. Also, if you find yourself doing some certain custom texting, or you're doing certain emails all the time, you can actually use these sticky notes to house all of that, those templates, and then you can just copy and paste from the sticky notes. So it's a really handy tool. Another tool is the snippet tool. Every once in a while, you want to do a screenshot of your computer. It's super easy. Same thing, you go down to your start menu and you start typing snippet, S-N-I, and it should come up with the snipping tool. Same thing, once you open it, lock it to your taskbar, that way it's always there and it's easy to access. But this is a great, easy way to send screenshots. This is how when I want to send a report to my staff, I might take a screenshot of it, paste it in an email, and then send it out that way if I'm looking at phone stats or sales stats or things like that. So those are a couple cool little tricks that are already built in most likely with the computer that you're already using. So hopefully that'll help you out. So working in a call center for a lot of years myself and working kind of in a phone business, I learned this little evil trick. And this is what you can do if you have somebody that's really rude and they're cussing you out, but you can't just hang up on this person for whatever reason. Or you shouldn't hang up on the person. You can probably handle it. Hopefully you have some thick skin. But what I call it is the penalty hold. So you get somebody that's being rude to you and they're mean to you, they're yelling at you and stuff like that, just put them on hold. Hang on real quick, sir. Just hit the hold button, put them on hold. It is very hard for people to hang on to anger. It's going to be super hard for this guy, for you to come back a minute from now and this guy is still to be as hot as they were. It's possible, but not as likely. So I call that the penalty hold. Anytime you have somebody that's going out of their mind and they start yelling and for whatever reason and they're angry at life and all that, put them on hold. Just don't even ask them, hang on real quick, put them on hold, and then you come back from it a minute later. I'm so sorry about that, sir. You were saying? And then get them to repeat it. It's going to be hard for them to keep that energy up of hating you or being mad at you or hating your company or whatever they're doing. throughout that hold. And sometimes I've done it more than once to somebody. So if you get that person, usually people just need to calm down. So what I've actually found to be more helpful than anything with dealing with angry people is just letting them talk. Just absolutely letting them rant. Everybody wants to feel like they're being heard. So if you're in a situation where somebody's mad about something, I usually actually love talking to people. Just tell me what's going on, man. Why are you so upset? And having them express themselves, a lot of times they're going to be cooler at the end. But sometimes they're not, and they just want to go after you and they start calling you names and all that. Just put them on hold. All right, so you're going to deal with different types of customers all along the way. I personally had a early on experience with insurance. So I was like 17, 18 years old. I had a car stolen. And 30 days later, my insurance company gave me a check. So at the time, I don't know if I was on my dad's policy or I was chipping in or whatever it was, but I was really early on in my driving career, and the insurance company paid me more than I knew that ever got paid to them. So you're going to deal with people that have been, they're going to tell you, I've never had a ticket or an accident. I've been driving for 80 years and all I do is pay insurance and I don't believe in it. Now, you and I know that the purpose of insurance is to cover them if something were to happen. And that's kind of what you want to get across to them. Oh man, that's great that you have an amazing driving record. You're going to be perfect for us. I usually joke with people in that situation, like, you're exactly what we're looking for. Somebody that stays with us for 50 years and never has a ticket or an accident. However, you don't want to get into a battle with them. You don't want to, you're not going to win. So, you've heard the phrase, win the battle, lose the war type of thing. So just let them talk a little bit right at that moment. Let them go, okay, that's amazing, sir. I love that driving record. That sounds really good. And then move on a little bit with the application or do some more selling tactics on them. And then later on in the call, remind, insurance is all about really protecting you from the uncertain life events. For all I know, sir, you could get into an accident today. My God, I hope it doesn't happen. But that's what insurance is all about. Nobody plans on having an accident. But my point is, don't immediately jump all over them when they say something like that. Give them a little bit of breathing room. Later on, a minute, 2 minutes later in the call, bring it back and get back into it. And I think you're going to have a lot more success understanding where they're coming from in that situation. So when you're looking at phone systems, understand that there's all kinds of different prices out there. So I know some people use their local cable company for that, their phone company, whatever. I use the voice over IP service or a VoIP service. There's all kinds of them out there. A lot of them specialize in insurance agencies. So I pay about $55, I believe, per station per month. So in order to get that deal, I had to pay in advance for like a year for all of them also. So that sucked, but ultimately I got it, and now we're there, and now we're into it. So ultimately I can actually add lines and take lines off with my provider also. So sometimes if I have more employees or less employees, I can kind of add lines and remove them for that reason. So I'm paying probably, with everything together now, I'm paying probably around $450, $500 a month for all of my phone lines and the extra lines and the taxes and the fees and all that stuff. So I pay a lot. But if you know from my other videos, my telephone system also integrates with my CRM. So there's a lot of things that are all attached to that. So for me, it's absolutely worth that. I recommend that people do that. Every time I go to an office and I see that they're not using this system, I ask them, all about the limitations of their system. Now, most of them, they think I'm crazy for paying that much. But I think they're crazy for not paying that much. They think they're saving money by having $20 a station versus $55. However, their phones aren't capable of doing what mine can do, and they're not able to integrate with their leads the right way. They don't have click-to-call, which is some basic stuff. They don't have the ability to record calls, all that. So all of that stuff's included for what I'm paying for about $55. And then you can always email me, and I'll give you the link to my providers and things like that. So early on in my career, I worked for Geico. Geico is a gigantic call center that I worked for. I was sitting there in a situation, and we had like desk partners. So it was me and then a guy sitting like kind of right back to me. So across the hallway was another lady. Her name was Norma. So Norma was a great lady. And basically, Norma just had the funniest customers all day long. I want you to imagine this. Norma literally is just laughing for 8 hours a day. She had the best customers. She thought they were so funny. And then behind me, I had a guy, I'm not going to use his name, but this guy, he just had the worst customers ever. Every customer he had was a conflict, and they had a bad attitude, and they didn't laugh at his jokes and all that stuff. All day long, I'd hear this guy throwing pens against the wall and stuff like that because he's so frustrated. So Did the guy sitting behind me actually have worse customers? And did the other lady actually just get lucky and she had all the funny customers? Absolutely not. This is clearly a matter of this was was in Norma's head. She knew that she was going to lead that charge. She came in with a positive attitude. She led with the laughing and all that. Where the guy behind me knew this was going to be a horrible call, and he knew this guy wasn't going to laugh at his jokes. And because of all that, his calls went down, whereas Norma's calls went up. So your attitude has everything to do with the way your job is going to go. If you're in a good mood, it's going to be much harder and much more difficult for your customers to kind of want to tear you down. If you're grumpy, you don't sound energetic, you don't sound fun, the customers aren't going to be bubbly and excited to talk to you either. So remember, your attitude is absolutely key, and you go first. That's the rule. You absolutely have to lead that charge. You set the tone. You have all the energy. You be up front and confident with that and excited and have all the energy, and your customer is much more likely to follow suit. All right, so I love having same-day closes, same call closes. So I absolutely hate calling people back because I feel like the odds of me selling them actually just completely fall. But you're going to be in situations where you have to do it. Sooner or later, you're going to have to call somebody back. They got to get a VIN number, their checkbook's at home in their dresser drawer, and there's nobody there that can get it. Or they say they want to think about it, which I can't stand. But people are going to do that kind of stuff. So here's what I want you to do. Anytime someone says, "Call me back," give me a few days. Understand that giving people longer isn't actually helping them. There's no reason somebody needs 3 days to review a policy. They're either going to review it right then and there, or they're just not going to do it at all. So don't fall for that. Somebody says, "Give me a week to think about it." I promise you, they are not spending a week thinking about your quote. That's not going to happen. So anytime someone says something like, "I want to think about it," if I'm going to, and like I said, I hate doing this, but if I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to call somebody back, I'm going to do it very quickly. I'm going to call you back in an hour, sir. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. I'm going to email this right now. I'm going to make one more call, and then I'll call you back right after lunch. Those types of things. I'm going to call these people back quickly. And if they do say they need the weekend or something like that, I'm talking to somebody on Friday afternoon, like, "Okay, sir, I'm going to call you, Monday at 10 o'clock. Now, if I ever tell somebody what time I'm going to call them, I'm going to try to call them a little bit before that. So if I tell someone I'm going to call them at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call them at like 9:45. I'm going to call them early. I don't want them to know what time I'm calling and specifically avoid my call. So just keep that in mind. Don't ever call people back if you can help it. If you are, don't give them a long time. That's not going to help them. That's going to make it worse. Think about it literally this way. The longer you give somebody, the less likely they're actually going to do what you want. Always have them do it right now. "I'm going to send you this quote right now, sir. I'm going to call you back in an hour," and at least try that and see how far you can get with it. All right, this next topic is a little sensitive for your agency owner who paid for all these internet leads. Sooner or later, you're going to get to a point where this customer is just not on board. They're not cooperating, they're angry, they're cussing you out, or whatever they're doing. So you just end the call at that point. Like, you don't need to be rude about it, but get them off. If you ever realize that you're in a situation where this is an unwinnable battle, like this person's not going to cooperate, then you might as well end the call. Give this person a day or two, call them back, and try to get them at that point. Because ultimately, if they're not liking you, if they're not on board with listening to about how amazing your company is, they're not going to buy your policy anyways. So I don't want to satisfy them by hurrying up and giving them a quote and letting them feel like its price is the only difference, because I'm probably not going to win in that situation. So the only way you're actually going to sell a policy, which is the whole point of doing this, is by making sure that they're on the same page as you, and you're communicating, and you're telling them things, and they're listening to it, and they're putting values on this. Now, if they're just constantly cutting you off and just give me the price, just give me the price, just give me the price, you're not going to sell the policy anyways, so you might as well say something like, "Well, let me call you later at a better time. When can we talk?" Something like that. Now, the reason I say that's sensitive is because I don't want you to do that immediately in the call. Everybody, every single person you call is going to have all kinds of resistance right away. So what I'm talking about is when you're 4, 5, 8 minutes into this phone call and you're trying all kinds of tactics on this person and it's just not getting anywhere. That person's not going to buy. And you have to remember what we're doing here. We're not here to quote people. We're here to sell things. So the goal isn't to get to the end and tell the guy the price. The goal is to actually sell the policy. So if you're in the middle of this call and you feel like this isn't going anywhere, this isn't going to happen, there's really no reason for you to continue. So consider that and make sure your agent is okay with it, but you don't necessarily want to just hang up on somebody right away. But yeah, if they're not cooperating, they're not going to buy your policy, and your time is probably better served talking to someone who is going to be interested in buying. Okay, so there's a really neat sales technique that helps you understand the way you choose your words and use your words matter. And the statement goes something to the effect of, "I didn't say you stole the money." So this is a really cool sentence because there's only like 6 words in it, and depending on where you put the emphasis is completely going to change the meaning of this. And this is super important when we're talking about the way you present a piece of value, the way you talk about one of the features of your company. So think about it this way. So if I say I didn't say this, you stole the money, that doesn't have the same impact as if I said I didn't say you stole the money. That of course means maybe someone else did. If I say I didn't say you stole the money, that means I implied it or somehow communicated that to you. If I say I didn't say you stole the money, that means you took the money or you borrowed it or whatever, but something happened, but that's a completely different sentence. How about I didn't say you stole the money? Well, then someone did, but that's once again, completely different sentence. And finally, I didn't say you stole the money, right? So the way you put your inflection, the way you choose your words, the energy you use, the inflection you use, all of that matters. And you need to consider that when you're talking about value. Everything you're presenting, the way you answer a question on a sales call, all that matters. So you need to think about that. Every time you're pitching something, are you pitching it in the best way possible? Are you framing this? Are you painting the picture? Are you making this sound really good? And are you salesy for these people? You want them to get excited about whatever you're talking about. So think about I didn't say you stole the money next time you're going into a sales pitch, and you're going to realize that the way you choose your words and the inflection matters a lot. Okay, so there's a really neat sales technique that helps you understand the way you choose your words and use your words matter. And the statement goes something to the effect of, I didn't say you stole the money. So this is a really cool sentence because there's only like 6 words in it, and depending on where you put the emphasis is completely going to change the meaning of this. And this is super important when we're talking about the way you present a piece of value, the way you talk about one of the features of your company. So think about it this way. So if I say I didn't say this, you stole the money, that doesn't have the same impact as if I said I didn't say you stole the money. That of course means maybe someone else did. If I say I didn't say you stole the money, that means I implied it or somehow communicated that to you. If I say I didn't say you stole the money, that means you took the money or you borrowed it or whatever, but something happened, but that's a completely different sentence. How about I didn't say you stole the money? Well, then someone did, but that's once again, completely different sentence. And finally, I didn't say you stole the money, right? So the way you put your inflection, the way you choose your words, the energy you use, the inflection you use, all of that matters. And you need to consider that when you're talking about value. Everything you're presenting, the way you answer a question on a sales call, all that matters. So you need to think about that. Every time you're pitching something, are you pitching it in the best way possible? Are you framing this? Are you painting the picture? Are you making this sound really good? And are you salesy for these people? You want them to get excited about whatever you're talking about. So think about I didn't say you stole the money next time you're going into a sales pitch, and you're going to realize that the way you choose your words and the inflection matters a lot. So as you're going through your day, you're going to realize that out of a 15 quote day, there's times where you're going to find people that don't have insurance or that there's a rating factor difference, such as they just got divorced or they just moved or they just got a new car. Those are the kinds of cases that you need to sell. Those are the ones where they can't really compare with what's going on now. Or if they just bought their own car and they're on a policy with somebody else, they don't have the option to add that car to that policy because they're not the registered owner of that vehicle. So you don't need to worry about how much they paid or what they were paying on their dad's policy or what they were paying with their ex-wife policy. That's no longer an option for these people. Or how much they used to pay in Illinois and now they're in Florida or something like that. So when there's a big rating factor difference or the person doesn't even have insurance, those are people you need to be selling. So out of your 15 quote day, you need to look at those. Those are the ones you want. So as soon as you find out, hey, this guy doesn't have insurance, I know your rate's going to be high. Luckily, so is everybody else's that they call. So they're going to have a high down payment and a horrible rate everywhere they go because they had a lapse of insurance, which literally makes them a bad risk because literally they're more likely to have an accident. So you find out someone doesn't have insurance, this is happening, sir. I'm going to take care of that right now. I'm going to make sure you have everything you need to go register your car. I'm going to make sure that I give you everything you need to get your car off the lot. I'm going to make sure that you actually have coverage so you don't have to worry about getting pulled over, getting your car impounded. Those are the guys. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to make sure that happens for you. Be real confident about that. So the guy says, I'm on a policy now with my ex-wife and we need to get our own policies. And the guy says, yeah, but it's cheaper the way it is. Sir, I would not want to have a claim in your situation where you're on a policy with your ex-wife. If they investigate that and they find out that you're getting married rates and you never told them that this changed, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where there could be a coverage question. So even though I cost more, at least we know that it's right and your claim is actually going to be covered. So as you're going through your day, you're going to realize that out of a 15 quote day, there's times where you're going to find people that don't have insurance or that there's a rating factor difference, such as they just got divorced or they just moved or they just got a new car. Those are the kinds of cases that you need to sell. Those are the ones where they can't really compare with what's going on now. Or if they just bought their own car and they're on a policy with somebody else, they don't have the option to add that car to that policy because they're not the registered owner of that vehicle. So you don't need to worry about how much they paid or what they were paying on their dad's policy or what they were paying with their ex-wife policy. That's no longer an option for these people. Or how much they used to pay in Illinois and now they're in Florida or something like that. So when there's a big rating factor difference or the person doesn't even have insurance, those are people you need to be selling. So out of your 15 quote day, you need to look at those. Those are the ones you want. So as soon as you find out, hey, this guy doesn't have insurance, I know your rate's going to be high. Luckily, so is everybody else's that they call. So they're going to have a high down payment and a horrible rate everywhere they go because they had a lapse of insurance, which literally makes them a bad risk because literally they're more likely to have an accident. So you find out someone doesn't have insurance, this is happening, sir. I'm going to take care of that right now. I'm going to make sure you have everything you need to go register your car. I'm going to make sure that I give you everything you need to get your car off the lot. I'm going to make sure that you actually have coverage so you don't have to worry about getting pulled over, getting your car impounded. Those are the guys. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to make sure that happens for you. Be real confident about that. So the guy says, I'm on a policy now with my ex-wife and we need to get our own policies. And the guy says, yeah, but it's cheaper the way it is. Sir, I would not want to have a claim in your situation where you're on a policy with your ex-wife. If they investigate that and they find out that you're getting married rates and you never told them that this changed, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where there could be a coverage question. So even though I cost more, at least we know that it's right and your claim is actually going to be covered. When you're setting up your office, I think music is one of the most important things you can do. When I walk into an office and I hear silence, I immediately know that they're underperforming. There's nobody that wants to make a call in a quiet office, which means they're going to avoid making calls. So if you guys all start at 8:30 and you realize that nobody's really making calls until about 9 o'clock, 9:30, they're like warming up. That's because your office is probably too quiet. So I use Sonos and they're expensive. It's like $300 or $400 for 2 speakers, but it sounds really good even at low volumes. But I use the Apple Watch. I have a decibel meter on my watch. It says that I'm around 60, 65 decibels, just kind of the ambient sound level. So make sure that the music is in there and that it's loud enough so that when people make a call, they're kind of hidden or protected a little bit because nobody wants to make a call in a quiet office. And music is good just for the energy and everything. And you can make it fun, like give them, if the top seller gets to choose the music category for the day or the hour or something like that. Or first half of the day this person chooses, second half that chooses. But you definitely need music and you need sound, and that's one of the first things people realize when they come in my office is just how energetic it is. And the first thing they hear is the music. So I let them listen to whatever they want, but there's all kinds of different, Pandoras and YouTube music and all kinds of different categories and things. You can actually get multi-office speakers. So like the Amazon Alexa, I think these things are like $30, $40 now. You can get like 2 or 3 of those and outfit like a 1,500 square foot office, and you can get them all synced up so they're playing. So literally for around $100, $150, you can have music that you can say, hey Siri, play this, or hey Alexa, play that, and it just starts playing it. All right, I know it's tempting to want to get through all these videos and feel like that you're learning something. You got to understand, watching a video doesn't teach you anything. You need to implement this stuff. You can only absorb so much information. That's why this is such a cool program that you can just go back and watch these videos over and over again. So the idea of you blowing through my entire sales training in one day or in a couple hours or a few days or whatever, that's not actually going to get you to be a better agent. You can't go to the gym and power lift for 3 days and actually see results. You're going to do nothing but hurt yourself. So I know it's tempting to want to jump through all these videos and get through all this program, but that's not what you're actually trying to do. This is a process. This should be taking you like a month, 2 months to get through all of this stuff. You should practice a little bit and then learn a little bit more, practice a little bit, learn a little bit more, and then constantly go back and kind of rewatch some stuff. Because It took me like 20 years to get really good at this stuff and learn this stuff in a smooth, fast, confident way. So that's not something you're going to learn in a couple days, especially if you're new to insurance. If you've only been in insurance for a year or two, like this is like a lot of information that there's no way you could possibly absorb and do all at once. So do not blow through this video or any of these videos and thinking that that's going to help you accomplish something, or like skipping to the close. A lot of people that come, they tell me, I need help closing. No, you don't. You need help building rapport. You need help giving value. You need help having a sales conversation and sales goals. That's what you need. Closing, there is no magical phrase. It's a whole process that it takes. So you can't skip. So you need to connect, you need to build value, and you need to close. You can't just be really good at one of those. So, and you can't be good at one or two of those and not do the third. So they all are part of this process. So don't worry about rushing through all this. Take your time. Make sure you're learning this stuff, because I wouldn't recommend continuing until you feel like you have a good mastery and you've demonstrated results with one segment at a time. All right, you want to make sure when you're probing on certain things such as insurance tenure that you're sensitive to the fact that the customers may have no idea why you're asking this. So for example, some companies, they rate differently depending on if you've had 6 months of insurance, 12 months, 18 months, and longer, right? So when a customer says, yeah, no, I've had insurance for a few months, and you have to probe on that to find out exactly what it is, don't make them feel like they're in an interrogation, especially if this is early on in the call. Because you don't have any sort of rapport with this person or anything like that. And what I hear in the field there is that I can feel that people starting to get defensive. Like, listen, I've had insurance. What difference does it make? They have no idea what your rating factors are and why you care about that. So if you feel like you're digging too hard with somebody early on in the call, just understand, just come back to that later. So most companies, you're allowed to like skip pages and come back and go forward and stuff like that. Or you can go back earlier in the application and change things. So don't dig too hard if you feel like you're probing and the customer's starting to get resistant about it. Just understand that they don't know why you're asking this stuff. They don't know why it makes a difference. You could try to phrase things in a question that's easy for them to answer, such as, what do you think, sir, over 12 months or within 12 months, right? Was the accident over 3 years or within 3 years? Was it over 5 years? See what I'm saying? So you can phrase things in a way that makes it easier for them to digest that and understand what you're saying. So focus on that and realize when you're irritating somebody. All right, so there's a term in sales, it's called be-backs will never be back. So this is why when you go to a car dealership or something like that, that they escalate the pressure on you and they keep closing you more and more, because they know if you go home, you're never going to come back. And a lot of companies, like, that's it, like especially if you're a call center, that's it. If you don't buy right now, you're never going to be able to get a hold of me again. So this is why in my sales training that I focus mainly on, you have to get the sale and you got to get it right now. It should be like a same call close, like literally. So when people are telling you, call me later or call me tomorrow, or call me in 3 days or something like that, just understand that it's very unlikely that they're actually going to answer and still want to do business with you. Remember, I'm always out there. So as soon as you get off the phone with your customer, my agency is going to call them or we're going to sell them. We're not going to take that stuff for an answer when they say, call me in 3 days. Also consider when someone's saying you call me, let me think about it over the weekend or whatever. They're not actually going to think about it. No one's going to go home and print this stuff out and compare side by side, have their wife sit down with them. So a lot of times when people say they need to do something, I'm going to put them on a shorter clock. They say, call me tomorrow. I say, well, how about I call you in 20 minutes? Something like that. You're going to have much more success with that if you have to absolutely call them because they need to get a VIN number or something or whatever. But ultimately, giving people more time, 3 days, 7 days, call me in a couple of weeks, that's not actually giving them more time to think about it. That's just it's going to make it colder and colder, and there's less likely it's going to happen. There's never going to be a better time than right now. So be-backs will never be back. Don't ever count on somebody that says, oh yeah, I love what you're doing, I'm going to come right down. I've literally talked to people, they tell me, I'm 15 minutes away, I'm coming to your office, and I've never heard from these people again. It's the weirdest thing. So always get them right when you have them on the phone, do every single thing you can right then and there, exhaust every option you can, and you're going to have way more success knowing that you can't count on them actually answering your call in the future. So I want you to imagine driving a Kia. Let's call it a used Kia, 10-year-old Kia, right? I used to own a Kia, I like Kias, but 10-year-old Kia. You drive to the Mercedes lot because you want to get a new car. So as you're getting out of your Kia, you can see the salesperson. You make eye contact with him, and he starts walking over. He's wearing a suit, white shirt, tie, whatever, looking good. And they come over, and do you think the first question he's going to ask you is, well, how much did you pay for your Kia? No. That's absolutely not. That price that you paid for your current vehicle or that current insurance company has nothing to do with what you're going to be paying with the new one. So when you get, if this is a Mercedes and you have a Kia, and the guy gets to the finance room and he tells you that we're going to cost, $60,000, and you tell the guy, well, I'm only paying $20,000. I only paid $20,000 for my Kia. Does that even matter? Who cares what you paid for your Kia? If you want a Mercedes, you're going to pay more for it. If you want a good quality insurance company, you're going to pay more for it. And that's your job, is to point out all those differences. If customer doesn't know the difference between the Kia and the Mercedes, then they would be an idiot if they actually paid more for that. Now, if they understand that, hey, the Mercedes got leather, maybe better resale value, longer warranty, or whatever the things are that the Mercedes is going to offer, the salesperson's job is to point all that stuff out. So, not to make a big difference about what you currently paid for your car. So don't ever ask what they currently paid. It doesn't matter what they paid for their lesser, inferior company. You're going to focus on what you offer. Even if you cost more, you're double, triple, you're going to make it sound like you're worth it, because doing that, if you're trying to think about the confidence level you're going to get if you're continuously trying to close somebody when you're double. Well, think about how good you're going to be when you're actually within the realm of 10%. You're going to be very confident. You're going to sound a lot smoother and more confident getting into that. You're going to have better success. So don't ask what they pay. Think about the Mercedes. There's no way they're asking you what you paid for your inferior vehicle, because they're the Mercedes. They're worth it. And that's what you need to be convincing your customers of. All right, so depending on the carrier that you're working for, and maybe even the risk factor that you're dealing with, like a high risk or low risk or whatever, different questions in the application might have a different impact. For example, low mileage, or having a commercial driver's license, or insurance history and things like that. So you got to be careful. A lot of, especially the older generation, right, or older people, they like to say, I don't drive much. I'm retired. I only drive 6 miles a week or something like that. So if your company doesn't care about mileage and there is no rating difference, you don't want to point that out to your customer. You want to say, oh man, that's amazing. Let me note that right here, and make a note of that, or thanks for telling me that. That's amazing. Something like that. You don't want to make it sound like, oh wow, we're not the company that cares about low mileage, because the customer is going to feel like they got the wrong place. So if someone insists on telling you that I have a clean record for the last 50 years, you don't want to tell them, well, sir, we only go back 3 years. Okay, you're not going to build any points there, and the customer is going to feel like you don't care that they've been clean for 50 years. So even if your company doesn't go back that long, and you talk to them and they say, I've been clean for 50 years, you want to let them know, man, that is really amazing. Let me make a note of that, and then continue on with the call. But you don't want to act like it didn't happen or not acknowledge that, because then you're rude, for one thing. But secondly, you want them to feel like that matters here. Oh, you haven't had an accident for 50 years. You're a really good driver. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Let them know that you acknowledge that, and then that does impact them. So I know as a sales agent, you always want to have a low price. We always want to have a low price because that makes our job easier. It doesn't mean you're going to sell the policy, but it definitely makes it more likely that it's going to happen, right? So when you deal with somebody that has bad credit, I want you to understand that they have bad credit everywhere they go. Almost every insurance company that I know of runs credit, or they use consumer reports or some sort of version of that to kind of categorize people and give them different prices based on that. So if someone has bad credit and you can see that in your quoting system and you know your rate's going to be high, you need to understand it's high everywhere. Imagine if you were to buy a car and you have literally like a 500 score or something like that. Anywhere you go, you're going to have an amazing, if they even sell you a car at that, you're going to have a really high interest rate. So you don't need to apologize for it. You don't need to tell them, sir, your car interest rate is going to be 23% and make a big deal about that. That guy's going to have a 23% interest rate no matter where he buys a car. So just like insurance, if you have a poor insurance score with us, it's likely you're going to have a bad insurance score everywhere you go. So don't worry about that. Don't make it a big deal. Don't focus on that. None of that matters. You have the same chance of selling that as any other company. So don't point out, don't get defeated. Don't be like, oh my God, this guy's down payment is really high because he has bad credit, or he doesn't have he has an insurance lapse or something like that. If he has an insurance lapse, most people care about that everywhere. If he has bad credit, most people care about that everywhere. If they have a DUI, 3 accidents, whatever it is that's bad about this particular risk, understand it's bad at every company they go to. It's not like they're going to find a company that doesn't care about driving record or doesn't care that they had a DUI. And almost every company I know thinks current insurance and maintaining insurance history is a big deal. So don't focus on the fact that it's going to affect your rate. Understand it's going to affect everybody's rate everywhere they go. All right, so you can use leading questions as a tool to help you sell policies. So a leading question is something like, you know what a leading question is, right? And the customer's probably going to say right, even if they don't, because you just made them say that. So I do quite a bit when I'm coaching and doing sales training. Like, you're following me, right? You're paying attention, aren't you? Or you notice when we do the telemarketing training, like, this is your address, isn't it? Things like that. Those are leading questions. So you can be pretty skillful in the way you handle these, and you can make customers do what you want them to do. For example, if I wanted a customer to carry full coverage because I feel like they're driving a late model vehicle, I could say something like, okay, we're going to put full coverage on this, right? Or we're going to put comp and collision on this, right? I'm going to make that person lean that way. If it's a 1972 Toyota or something, I'm going to say, we're just doing liability, aren't we? I'm going to make it easy for them to go the way I want them to go. So this can be used with all kinds of coverages. You're a homeowner, so you're going to want really good coverage, right? Make sure you're protected. Or you're a renter, so we're not really worried about the same protections as somebody who owned their home would be concerned about. So you can see how the way you phrase your questions is going to get your customer to go that way. We do this a lot of times with deductibles. So if it's really cheap for this person to have a low deductible, I'm going to go, hey, you're going to want a low deductible, right? And if I'm looking at this guy and he's 19 years old driving a brand new Camaro or something like that, I'm going to want this guy to carry high deductibles because it's going to be very, very expensive. So I'm not going to go, you're going to want to go with 1,000 other deductibles on here, right? That would make a lot of sense for you. So leading questions are absolutely a tool. You have to think about the way you phrase things, but you can use them to guide people. And this is basically sales. You're making them do things that you want them to do. So pay attention to the way you phrase things. All right, so you are a salesperson and you happen to be selling insurance. So which means we want these people to buy our product. However, we also have a responsibility to make sure that we're giving people proper coverage and things like that. So it's a fiduciary responsibility is what you have, if you remember that from licensing. Anyways, so there's going to be times where I want to lead people a certain way because I want to get the sale. So for example, if you're in a situation where you know that uninsured motorist coverage is really expensive, but then you have to walk that line of how do I pitch the fact that I don't want them to get this because I want to, I know we charge too much for that as a company, but I want to get the sale. I'm going to tell you how to do it. So I'm going to give you two examples on how to pitch uninsured motorist. The first one being where I do want them to get it, and the second one where I don't want them to get it. And I want you to think of how you can see how the customer is going to fall right into this. So the do want to get uninsured motorist. So listen, Mr. Customer, we do offer a benefit. It is the most amazing coverage that you can have with us. We call it uninsured motorist, and what that means is if you're hit by someone who doesn't have insurance, it's going to cover you for your injuries. It's also going to cover you for lost wages and pain and suffering. In my state, it does all that. You need to have that. I absolutely recommend it. Is it okay if I put that on? And if I say that in the right way, the customer is going to want to lean forward and do whatever I say. I'm the expert. I'm the insurance agent. So I'm going to do the same coverage, and this time I'm going to talk my customer out of it. So listen, Mr. Customer, we do offer uninsured motorists. It is amazing coverage. However, it adds a lot of money to your premium, and honestly, most people in your situation just wouldn't want to pay that much more. So it adds about $170 every 6 months to your price. Would you want me to increase your policy like that? So you can see the way I presented those two options, there's no way that the person's, the second one, I shouldn't say no way, but it's very unlikely that they're going to want it the way I presented it. So you as a salesperson have the control and have the ability to influence the way your people are thinking about things, and that is how you can do it. So you can absolutely lead them in a way. I'm going to do the same thing with deductibles. Listen, sir, you absolutely want to make sure that you have a very low deductible. That way, if you were to have a claim, you don't have to come up with that much out of pocket. That makes sense, right? And I'm going to get that person to go, yeah, that makes sense. Whereas if let's say I got a 22-year-old driving a Camaro SS or something. All right, man, I got your deductibles. I'm going to put them at a level what's going to make it a lot more affordable for you. As long as you don't have accidents, this is going to save you a lot more money in the long run. That would make sense to you, wouldn't it? And then the customer obviously is going to do whatever I tell them to do. So I'm never saying trick your customer. I'm never saying don't tell them about the coverages. At some point, remember, we're just quoting at this point, and I want to get them on board. At some point, when you sell it, you're going to cover the call ending checklist, and you're going to go over every single coverage line by line and remind them about it. But right now, on the quoting stage, you want to make sure that they're just on board and they're going to buy your product. Later on, you're going to give them all the fine details and you're going to get into that. But for right in the quoting stage, just give them what they need to know in order to say yes. And then, like I said, tie it up later when you're going over the call ending checklist. All right, so another story I like to tell is what I call the doctor stories. So I go to the doctor one time, and this is after I had some blood work or whatever, so now the doctor's ready to review that stuff. So doctor sits in front of me, he's looking at my file, he goes, okay, so this looks good, this looks really good, I'm a little concerned about this part. And I'm sitting like, I'm like, oh my God, like what are you concerned about? And so the doctor's going to tell me, okay, so I think you have, this possible issue, and basically you could treat or you could not treat. It's up to you. What do you want to do? And I'm sitting there like, what? Like I don't know. Like, why would I know that? You're the doctor. You tell me what I should do. I came to you for advice. I don't want my doctor asking me what I want to do. I want my doctor to tell me. So think about this. What would I rather have? The doctor that says, hey, you could do this or you could do that. No, I want my doctor to tell me exactly what to do. So I want my doctor to say, listen, you have this issue. Here's what I think it is. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to prescribe 20 milligrams of this pill. You're going to take it twice a day for the next 3 weeks. You're going to go get your blood checked. A week after that, I'm going to have the results. You're going to come back. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to see if it goes this way, we're going to do this. If it goes that way, we're going to do that. That's the kind of doctor I want. I'm sure that's the kind of doctor you want as well. So think about that when you're going through a quote with somebody and you start asking the customer, do you want full coverage? Do you want liability? What do you want for liability insurance? How much coverage? Do you have MedPay? Do you want uninsured motorists? Do you have, what are your deductibles? You are the professional. You should be telling these people what they should be doing. You should be asking a customer who's not even insurance licensed what they want to do for certain things. So you are the professional, and believe it or not, you actually have that. When you answer the phone and you tell them who you work with, you automatically have the professional working for you. So your job is just to match that and tell these people. So a lot of times there's young people working in this business, there might be 22 years old, something like that, and they're thinking, man, I'm supposed to tell this 45-year-old what kind of coverage he should have. Yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. So even though they're 45 and they've been having insurance for a long time, they didn't go to school for this, they don't know as much as you do about insurance. I'm 99% sure that you know way more about insurance than this person does, and you should absolutely take that lead. Tell this person, listen, you got a 2005 car, I'm going to do liability for that because there's no way that car is going to be valuable enough to carry comprehensive and collision on. Or listen, sir, you own your home, you need to have 100, 300 on this coverage because you have assets you need to protect. You tell these people and you talk confidently like that. That's what people want. They want somebody to tell them. Can you imagine some guy with like 3 Mercedes and owns 2 homes and all that, and you're asking, well, what do you want for coverage? Well, that's what you are for. You are the professional. You are the expert. You work for that big company that advertises. You need to be telling these people what they should do. If you don't know what coverage is, you should be putting them on hold and talking to your manager or boss or whatever and figuring that out. But remember, you're the professional. You should be telling people what they need to be doing. If you're in sales, hopefully you're a competitive person. So I want you to consider most people that they're just trying to fight to be the #1 agent in their office or #2 in their office. So if I'm in Las Vegas, so there's just a ton of offices out here that sell insurance. I want you to think bigger. I'm really proud of one of my accomplishments is I was #2 in the country for selling life insurance a few years ago. And that was super impactful for me. I felt like I worked really hard to get it, first of all, but I feel like it kind of gave me a microphone. Like I know what I'm doing. I know how to sell things. So I want you to consider being bigger than your office. You should be the biggest one in your city, the best salesperson in your state, the best salesperson in your region, in the South, in the West, in the country. You should think bigger than just where you're at, because just being better than the guy next to you, you could still be not very good overall, but you're the tallest third grader, as I like to say. So there's no reason to be the tallest third grader. Think bigger than that. You want to be not only #1 in your office. That should be easy. There's only probably 3, 4, 5 people in your office. You want to be bigger than that. So ask your company. Maybe they have rankings and results for all these salespeople in your area, however they refer to that. And maybe you can start looking at it and start competing with other people that are doing the same job. Because ultimately, if you're selling insurance, you're doing the same exact job of thousands and thousands of people countrywide. You shouldn't just be looking to be the best one in your office. You should be looking to be way better than that. What are you capable of as a salesperson? How good could you be at this? And there are people that are better than you, and that's because they try harder and they think more about it and they do things. They take steps. They don't just watch a book or watch a movie or read a book on sales things. They actually try to implement this stuff. They try to practice it. They role play with people. They watch videos on YouTube. I remember going to Starbucks when I was a lot younger, and I'd go in there and I'd get a Frappuccino, or I'd go to the bookstore, get a Frappuccino. They had a Starbucks in the bookstore, and I'm sitting there reading sales books for free. Like I just sat there just killing time. So what kind of person? What is it that you do that makes you a better salesperson? What is it? Are you just clock out at 5 o'clock and go home and not think about this stuff? Or are you actually trying to get good at this? Are you reading books? Are you watching videos? It's not really that hard. Have a plan. Watch my AgencyCPR material. But you have to implement it. You can't just go to a conference or go to a class and not take anything away from it and change your behaviors. You have to take responsibility for yourself and realize there is a better way to do things, and what are you going to do to get there? You can't just read a book and not actually change your behavior and expect to sell more things. So it is absolutely possible for you to be better. All you need to do is try. Put some effort into it. You'll realize, you look around, how many other people around you are even trying? Most people are lazy. They don't do anything. They're going to watch this video, the same videos you're watching, and you're going to walk away learning a lot more and being a better salesperson. Other people are going to watch this video and they're not going to improve a thing. And that's because they don't actually want to improve. So hopefully you're competitive. Hopefully you want to be a salesperson. You want to be the best. Obviously, I've always looked at it like, if I'm the best, the money will follow. I looked at it that way. Other people, they want the money. They do it for the money. I look at it for being, I'm very competitive. I want to be number one. So hopefully you're like that also. But I just want you to know that you can absolutely be better, but you got to put in the work. This doesn't happen unless you absolutely try and focus on it and make sure you're setting goals and making that stuff happen for yourself. All right, so I want to tell you another story, and this is a story that I use for my employees to kind of show the kind of effort that I'm looking for out of them. And I like to use Outback Steakhouse because everybody's heard of Outback Steakhouse, and everyone's been there at one point in time. So this is going to be a fun little story because now after you hear this story, when you go to restaurants, you're going to look at things a little bit differently. So I like to say, I'm going to Outback Steakhouse, I'm going to get my dinner, and then I want you to imagine this is what I call waitress number one. So waitress comes up to me, she gives me my dinner, I have a great time, and then she comes by and she's like, hey, no rush, here's your check. I go, hey, thank you very much. And then she takes off, and then ultimately I handle that check. So I want you to consider, what is the likelihood I'm going to order dessert from that waitress in that situation? I'll tell you, it's very, very low. If she didn't prompt me for it, it's probably not going to happen, right? Now, maybe it was my birthday and I brought it up to her, or maybe there was some other special occasion, but the waitress did nothing for that. That would have had to happen from me initiating that conversation. All right, so that was waitress number one. Waitress number two, she's better at this, right? So I'm sitting there eating my dinner, I'm getting ready to kind of finish up, and I go, hey, I see her out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, waitress. She comes over, I'm like, hey, can I get the check, please? She goes, hey, before I bring you your check, can I talk to you about our dessert menu? And I'm going to go, well, no, that's cool. I don't really need dessert tonight, but thank you. So consider between waitress number one and waitress number two, who's more likely to get some dessert sales, right? Definitely waitress number two at least brought it up. So I don't know how many, I've never been a waiter or waitress, I have no idea how many tables, but I'm guessing they do like 15, 20 tables a night. If she's at least offering it, maybe she's going to sell one or two, desserts out of that. Okay. Waitress number three is the kind of employee that I want, and it's definitely the employee that you want. It's the employee that everybody wants. So waitress number three, as she's sitting me down and she's asking me for my drinks, she's going to prep me right then and there. She's going to say, hey, listen, I want you to save room for dessert. You're absolutely going to love this. I'll tell you more about it later, right? And she plants a seed for me. So I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm really into it, but whatever. So I'm going to eat my dinner and all that, and then she's going to recognize that I'm getting close to the end. So she's going to come up to me before I even have to flag her down. She goes, listen, I have to tell you about this. I can see that you're almost done with your meal. You have to hear me out here. We have our chef, Ramon, in the back. This guy is the most amazing chef ever. He makes the most amazing chocolate triple layer cake. This thing comes out in multiple layers. It's got chocolate and fudge all over. It's got sprinkles. It's got drizzle on it. It is the most amazing cake you have ever had in your life. You absolutely have to try this. Everybody else who tries this cake absolutely love it. How many pieces am I going to bring? You want one for everybody, or you want to share one? Okay? That is the kind of waitress that is absolutely going to sell a lot more desserts. So I want you to consider this from an employee standpoint. How much harder was her job? Like compared to waitress number one and waitress number two. Waitress number three was basically doing the same exact job. She just might have made a couple little tweaks to it. There's no way waitress number three is going to get off work and be super exhausted by all the times that she was talking about dessert that day. In my opinion, she gave about 1% more effort towards her job, but she's going to have an amazing amount more success. So think about the benefits of this. So first of all, as a customer, if I eat the dessert, I'm probably going to have a better experience overall. I'm probably going to be happier, in a better mood. So when it comes tip time, not only is my bill higher because I actually had more purchases by buying the dessert, I'm actually in a better mood, and I'm probably going to tip a more amount. Think about from the restaurant or the manager standpoint. The manager has employees, and they're whatever they're looking for to do for the revenue for the night is going to be higher. If I'm Mr. Outback and I own this place, I'm probably going to be happy. So everybody is going to benefit. The customer is going to be happy. They're going to sell more cheesecake or chocolate cake. They're going to the waitress is going to get a bigger tip. The restaurant's making more money. Everybody is happy because this waitress decided to give about 1% more effort. So I absolutely consider that when you're thinking about what kind of employee you are, or if you're an employer, what kind of employee you're looking for. Do you want waitress number 1, 2, or 3? And I think the answer is clear. So hopefully you love that story. All right, so another story I like to tell is what I call selling the Civic. What I mean by this is, imagine you're sitting at home one day and your neighbor comes down and he's got like a brand new Honda Accord, okay? And you go look at the Accord and you're like, man, this is the most amazing car ever. And so you're like, I'm gonna go buy one. So you're gonna go down to the Honda store and you're gonna walk in and the salesman's gonna think this is the greatest day ever because you walk in, you're like, I want a Honda Accord, let's do it. And so you're gonna walk right into the finance office and the guy is gonna sit down, he's gonna present a rate with you. And ultimately, let's say it's way too much. So the guy tells you it's $850 for this car. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't possibly afford that. So there's no way that the salesperson is going to say, okay, I guess you can't afford my car, so have a nice day, or come back when you can. No, the salesman, if they're smart, they're going to feel you out a little bit, and they're going to find out, well, what can you afford? And then they're going to sell you the Civic, right? Okay, you can't afford the Honda Accord, check this out. And they're actually going to sell it to you. They're going to make it sound really good. They're going to go, hey, look, check out this Civic right here. This is a really zippy car. A lot of people actually like this more because it can fit in the parking spots. It gets way better gas mileage. But check this out. The best part about the Honda Civic, it's still a Honda. You're still getting that name brand. You're still getting that reliability, that warranty, all the safety aspects or whatever. They're going to make this car sound good. They're not going to make it sound like it's a second choice. They're going to say, you absolutely love this car. You belong in this car. Test drive this one. Isn't it zippy? Isn't it the most amazing car? Let's go buy this. And they're going to make you feel really good about that decision. So this is what I call selling the Civic. And the way I relate that to an insurance policy is sooner or later you're going to quote people with 100, 300, or 5100 coverage, really high really low deductible. They want $100 on comp and collision. They want MedPay, PIP, all this amazing stuff. So that's fine. I absolutely want, I'm an insurance agent. I believe in insurance. You should have all that coverage. But what's more important to me is getting a sale. We have to have these people insured with us. That's what our job as an agent is, to represent the company and get these people in the door. So what I want you to do in that situation is always try to overcome their objection the right way first. Tell them about the value that they liked and bring that back. But if you get to a point where like, this isn't going anywhere, I just can't sell this guy because they can't afford that price, you're going to sell them the Civic. So absolutely give them the minimum. So in my state, the minimum is $2,550 and $20,000 for property damage. I can give this guy $1,000. Some people can do $2,000. I don't know if I want to go that high on a deductible. Whatever. I'm going to give a minimum coverage, $1,000 deductibles, and I'm going to tell them, listen, sir, I came up with another price. Instead of it being $450, I found a way to do it for $320 a month. Would you want to know more about that? And then I'm going to feel out this customer, and they're going to ask, well, how'd you do that? Well, I lowered some coverages, but honestly, most people in your situation would be comfortable with this. What do you think? And if they're on board, sell them that policy. Absolutely. You think about it, you're going to have all these other opportunities to increase their coverages at a later date. Maybe you do like a 30-day welcome call. Maybe you do every renewal you talk to these people. These people call in for this reason or that reason, or they want ID cards or pay a bill. You have all of those opportunities to try and upsell them again. So get them in the door. So the Honda Accord salesperson is never going to say, well, you know what, maybe you should go consider the Toyota. They're never going to say like that's a better car or anything like that. They're going to say, no, the Honda is absolutely where you want. If you can't afford the Accord, let's go look at that Civic. It's an amazing car. It wins all these awards and all that. They're never going to say, well, hey, you know what? You can get a Camry for less. You should go check that out. Or you should absolutely, if the guy tells you he's looking at different cars, I'm looking at the Honda Accord, I'm looking at the Camry, he's not going to say, well, I guess the Camry's got us beat this time. That's never going to happen. The Honda Accord is absolutely the car you need. If you can't afford that, then you need to get a Honda Civic. Those are your two options, sir. You don't have other options to go anywhere else. You're going to try and pitch the Civic. You're going to make it sound good, and you're going to make the customer feel really good about that choice. So just like with the coverages, you're never going to like give them a horrible coverage and not tell them about it. You're at least going to go over that with them. But at the quoting stage, you can get real generic about it. Listen, I gave you lower coverage. A lot of people are comfortable with that. If you're comfortable with that, it's $320 a month. Do you want the higher coverage or the lower coverage? Do you want to pay $450 a month or $320 a month? If you phrase that the right way, their customer is absolutely going to go, and they're probably going to buy the cheaper one. But like I said, you have all day, you're going to have that customer for however many years. You have all those opportunities to try and upsell them at a later date. Your job is to get them in the door right now with your company.